Bitcoin Treasury side of the afternoon. I'd like to introduce you to Scott Ellam, who's running one of the most interesting Bitcoin Treasury companies in the UK, running with a recruitment consultancy business that's providing a cash cow underneath the business to accrete more Bitcoin. Please welcome to the stage, Scott Ellam. Yo, Scotty.
Right. Okay, so as Richard kindly introduced me, my name is Scott Ellam. I'm the CEO and founder of a public listed operating business built on a profitable international executive recruitment company called XCE, Connecting Excellence Group. We have an integrated Bitcoin Treasury, and I suppose we committed to a Bitcoin balance sheet in 2021, and over 4 years designed, iterated, and built what you're about to hear. The first operating business designed to grow as a direct result of an integrated Bitcoin Treasury. But how did we get there? So 2014, I founded Spencer Riley, which is now an international executive recruitment company, placing people with the likes of PwC, the Big Four, logistics firms from around the world, construction firms from around the world. But it started with just myself. I was at a young age, I was confident I could do the job, and then I was confident I could set the business up, because it's a very capital light industry. So all you actually need is a phone, a laptop, some software, and the experience and the ability. In 2016, I discovered Bitcoin, and 3 things stood out to me. 21 million hard cap. That's the first time in human history there has ever been a mathematically scarce asset class. Unconfiscatability. It's the first time, again, in human history that there is an asset that cannot be taken from you without your consent. And then transportability. It is also the first time in human history that you can move your wealth from one side of the world to the other side of the world without any third-party permission necessary. But on the operating business, what actually is executive recruitment? So we place senior leaders, and what that means is a client will ask us to find a chief investment officer, a chief financial officer, a vice president of sales, and that specific recruiter in the office who works with that client will then speak to each and every individual who could be right for that role until they've built a shortlist that the client is happy with. They'll manage the interview processes through to the offer stage, and then there'll be assigned acceptance. And we charge between £15,000 and £100,000 per candidate that we place with a client. What that means is the headcount directly drives revenue. You're expecting a certain amount of revenue, minimum 200,000. Good performers may do £500,000 per annum from that one individual recruiter. And it's their network, it's their ability, and it's their revenue within the business. It's probably one of the few industries in the world where everybody knows exactly what each other is earning in the office and what revenue they're generating for the business. The result means, in order to scale, you need more recruiters to drive more revenue. But what are the problems? And there are 3 distinct problems for executive recruitment owners around the world. One is cash. These are cash-generating businesses, but the cash that they're generating is losing value year on year. And the owners of these businesses, working internationally from the UK, are feeling it and aware of it and understand that they're losing value in the balance sheet. The other one is scale. Headcount drives revenue. So each individual recruiter that you hire drives more revenue. And for an owner, the challenge is, how do you attract more revenue-generating recruiters to your business? How do you incentivize them? How do you motivate them? And ultimately, how do you keep them long-term? And the other one is exit. Because these are people assets, the assets of the business are the individuals in the business. it's very rare that you see competitor acquisitions happen in the industry because the assets can walk out the door. It's very rare you see private equity come into the industry, and if you do, they usually only come into the industry once. Because for the same reason, the best billers have just acquired, go and set up their own business elsewhere. So they're the three problems. XC provides solutions to all three of those problems. Cash, we have an active Bitcoin treasury. All surplus cash is allocated to Bitcoin. Scale, we're now using performance-based equity incentives in addition to what is usually a moderate basic salary and a high amount of performance-based earnings for each individual throughout the year. That performance-based equity that they can now build over 5, 10, 15, 20 years throughout their career, you can imagine when we're attracting people and incentivizing people and motivating them to stay, if they come to a business as a high performer and deliver £5 million worth of business over 10 years, and they're achieving equity in the business as they go through that period, it's a strong, powerful retention method in our industry. And then exit. The owners of these businesses, we can now welcome into the group using performance-based, long-dated equity incentives, welcome their company in, switch their cash reserves into Bitcoin, switch their ongoing cash flows into Bitcoin, and there are hundreds and thousands of these privately owned businesses, not just in the UK, but around the world. The result of that is an operating business that becomes more attractive to revenue the stronger the Bitcoin treasury is. But the more robust, the higher the cash flows, the higher the EBITDA in the operating business, not just the more resilient and the more credible and the more durable the Bitcoin treasury is, but also from a value perspective, on a rational basis, with a 6 times EBITDA multiple on the operating business, you would anticipate a strong MNAV on the Bitcoin treasury, which makes it not just more able to access the capital markets, but more appealing to the capital markets as well. So you have true investor, recruiter, manager, and a team with deep capital markets expertise, all aligned in value creation in the XCE group. We are a headhunting company, so when we set out on this journey, we needed to build a strong board, not just as an advertisement to the business, but also to be able to execute on both sides of the business. We have a strong operating team. The board needed to be understanding of the Bitcoin model, expertise in the Bitcoin model, and also have value alignment with the business. So Richard Byworth was the first person I reached out to and flew out to Zurich to meet Richard to talk him through the model. Richard's obviously a globally known Bitcoin strategy specialist or commentator, but also the managing partner at Bees Partners, formerly ran the world's largest convertible bond, derivatives and futures desk over at Nomura. We also have on there Vijay Selvam, who's just recently been appointed as Chief Legal Officer with Electron, who are Tether's mining business. Vijay is also a qualified Harvard attorney, a qualified Oxford lawyer, and the author of Principles of Bitcoin. So I don't think many people are authors, lawyers, and attorneys, but Vijay has managed to tick all 3 boxes. Sam Roberts, who led the first British pension fund allocation to Bitcoin, and then Angus Gladish, main market facing CFO, who's done main market uplistings in the past and has that experience, understands the strategy and is ready to execute. And then myself. From an investment point of view, we have a very strong cap table with some great names on it. But we have Adam back, who, when I had the first conversation with Adam, and we spoke at quite length, at the end of the conversation, Adam said to me, in his calm tone, this could be one of the first traditional businesses to grow as a direct result of a Bitcoin treasury. I said, I've already worked that out, Adam, that's why I'm on the conversation with you. But Adam participated in our pre-IPO Adam participated alongside retail in our IPO. He participated in the XE Bitcoin bonds designed by our team. And he recently participated in an equity raise a few weeks ago, adding 10 Bitcoin to our treasury. He's also busy at the moment launching the BSTR, which is a $3.5 billion SPAC on the NASDAQ exchange, but he gives a lot of time to the business, and I'm very grateful for his help and support along the way. Bitcoin Treasury progress. We came into the IPO, and the reason I've actually wrote what the pre-IPO Bitcoin is on here is we had just under 10 Bitcoin when we were moving towards IPO. That was accumulated from cash flows in the private business. We had an average price of $50,000 and a return of investment of 84%. Now, I put this on there because when we were going into the IPO, I wanted to speak to as many traditional investors as I possibly could to start educating them over the next 2, 4, 6 years to help them understand this business model. And one investment fund said to me, well, how do we know that you're going to deploy our capital better than we can deploy it ourselves? I took the opportunity to ask them what the return on their fund had been over the last 4 years, and it was less than our balance sheet at 84%. So we managed to start the education process on the basis that we had credibility managing money. And don't forget, that was through an 80% drawdown, where our revenues were going up 30%, the Bitcoin price was coming down. So we have uncorrelated revenue growth, and in some manner negatively correlated to the Bitcoin price at that time, in that we were accumulating more than we would have if the price had gone the other direction. Since IPO, we've bought 43.15 Bitcoin through equity raises. We've launched a scalable XE Bitcoin bond program with 10 Bitcoin in convertible bonds at the moment, truly Bitcoin denominated and the first of its kind, where the conversion price tracks the Bitcoin price. And we bought just over a Bitcoin with operating cash flow in January due to a high performance revenue generating month in the recruitment business. We also, and I'm probably proudest to say, received 0.5 Bitcoin as settlement for partial payment of a Chief Investment Officer assignment on behalf of the Bitcoin Investment Fund. So we're currently holding 62.93 Bitcoin, total value of that around $5 million, market cap's around $10 million, and we have a healthy MNAV. We have the Bitcoin Treasury tools in place, equity raise for when we're in a strong MNAV environment, ATMs in place when it's coupled with a high volume environment, and the XE Bitcoin bonds which can be used at a positive MNAV, but can allow us to position ourselves to add Bitcoin to the business and then add Bitcoin to the balance sheet upon conversion in a positive MNAV environment. Now, onto the operating business, and I appreciate there's a lot of information on this, so I'll give you the headline details of this. Before the IPO, we're at 1.5 million revenue, 659,000 profit, with a 37% compound annual growth rate since 2021. Each individual consultant, when we place a candidate with a client, charges around £15,000 to £100,000 per person, and we actually do 70% of our revenue overseas. Throughout that period of 2016 to 20, in order to protect the business against the UK economic environment maybe slowing down, we decided to put our resources into the USA, Europe, and the Middle East. The markets we cover: professional services, work with the likes of PwC, business advisory, BDO, and other names you'd recognise, UPS in logistics, and AI intelligence and data firms. As I mentioned, a Bitcoin investment firm with our new Bitcoin executive recruitment division. But what I want to make clear is we are sector agnostic and regionally agnostic in our growth. If we find an individual or a company with an expertise in placing hedge fund managers, then we can start that tomorrow, open up that market and generate revenue from that market. In the first quarter of this year, we announced our half one results, 1.2 million revenue for the half one, 0.9 million net fee income, 0.78 million gross profit, and 0.34 million operating profit for half one. That growth of 20% was uncorrelated to our public status, and it actually happened as we went through the IPO process. So As soon as we got onto the markets, Q1, we made an appointment, and there's quite a good story behind the appointment. So our Chief Performance and Growth Officer for the operating business, Carlos Benito Garcia, his previous experience, when I mentioned we moved into our office 2020, it was a week before COVID started. And one of the reasons I immediately adopted a Bitcoin balance sheet and committed to it was because we'd been saving up cash reserves over the long term. And once we saw the money printing start happening, I decided we'd allocate all of our cash to Bitcoin and continue buying every day and every week over a 4-year period. Now, downstairs in the same building, there was an office of 3 people. One of them was Carlos. That business developed from 3 consultants to 72 consultants over 3 years, while we were using our cash to buy Bitcoin. Carlos previously managed 120 satellite offices as part of a global franchise network, has experience in acquisitions and 2P experience. As soon as I told Carlos what we were doing last year in terms of taking an executive recruitment firm with an integrated Bitcoin Treasury, he immediately got the model, understood it, was invigorated, has joined the business in Q1, and has begun to build on our operational growth strategy. So we've also had sign-off as the first business to get the tax-efficient advance assurance on performance-based EMI share schemes for a business that holds Bitcoin on the balance sheet, and that will prove to be a powerful attraction to recruiters as the years go by and the business scales. And we've put some AI integrations in for scaling efficiencies. The operational growth strategy, what do recruiters actually want? They want long-term ownership in what they are building. What do owners want? They want a viable exit strategy. As if you can imagine, capital light, the people of the revenue. These owners spend their entire careers working in their own business only to self-fund a management buyout at the end of their career. Now, you might say a sensible owner would build cash and self-fund the management buyout, but what happens quite often is they complete a management buyout and ask the staff to carry on funding their buyout over the next 3 to 5 years. Makes it very difficult to exit. And for the talent who we're attracting into the business, we're the only executive recruitment firm in the world where when they join the business and they had $5 million worth of revenue over there, say 5 to 10 years within the company, they're benefiting from the equity incentives that are directly linked to operational and EBITDA growth, Bitcoin per share growth from the capital markets team's work, and the compound annual growth of Bitcoin. You can imagine that will become more attractive and stickier as the years go by. But what's the actual opportunity with this? Well, there's 100 to 300 revenue-generating recruiters within a 1 to 2 mile space of our office. We base the business in Leeds because it is an epicenter for international executive recruitment. We're on the phone to a client in the USA. Quite often they're competing with a business that we know that's on the same street. So there's a lot of talent in the local area. We make 10 hires. Our revenue should increase from 2 to 3.5 million additional revenue, with profit around 1 million to 1.8 million profit. Take that up to 40 hires, you're looking at 8 million to 14 million revenue, and you're looking at an additional 4 to 7 million pounds profit in the business. EBITDA multiple of 6 times. When you take that to acquisitional growth, there are 7,000 privately owned executive recruitment firms globally. 3.5 billion pounds of that is in the UK, 35 billion pound of it is global. There are 30 more, possibly, targets in the Leeds regional area. So we have 100 million pounds worth of addressable market on our doorstep with executive recruitment owners we know personally, profitable, cash flowing, provides immediate headcount growth, and they've had no exit opportunity. Now, the way in which we will do this, very little cash, using performance-based equity, immediately adding strength to the Bitcoin Treasury, allowing the business to acquire more Bitcoin, and strengthening the EBITDA value simultaneously. Brings us back round to a compounding dual flywheel. You can see the strength of being able to do that in a market where it's capital light. There is no equipment to buy to start doing this. There are very little long-term contracts in the industry. It's software, it's skills, and it's people. As those people drive more revenue into the Bitcoin Treasury, that becomes more attractive to the capital markets and thus becomes more attractive to investors. So what's the opportunity? The opportunity with this is every revenue generating recruiter is a potential hire for XC Connecting Excellence Group. Every cash generating company is a potential acquisition for Connecting Excellence Group. But most importantly, and unique in Bitcoin treasuries, every capital raise is designed to increase Bitcoin, increase revenue, and increase profit. The larger the raise, the larger the increase to all three. So, medium-term objectives for the business. Getting to the £10 million plus initial annual revenue benchmark as fast as possible, because that will be an accelerator to deliver more revenue. Bitcoin Treasury scaling, we've gone from 10 Bitcoin to 62 Bitcoin in the first quarter and the start of this quarter. We want to get to 100, 500, 1,000. Market cap wise, once we're over a £30 million market cap, we can begin preparations for a main market uplisting. At a 50 million market cap, we can begin to execute the uplisting. We have a capital markets team experienced in main markets. We have advisors with a clear roadmap towards that. And then international 24/7 listings, indexes and soft conversations with ETFs in this space already underway. Now, executive recruitment actually provides a unique opportunity to disrupt a global industry integrating a Bitcoin treasury. Every recruiter is a potential hire. Every recruitment company is a potential acquisition. It solves the problems they've wanted to solve. But if you think about the knock-on effects, every single senior leader around the world, in every single market around the world, every single business around the world, and in every jurisdiction around the world, speaks on a confidential basis to executive recruiters about their business and their plans for the future and the challenges they want to overcome. So by disrupting the global executive recruitment market, we have an opportunity to drive Bitcoin corporate adoption through every single market in the business arena. And if you'd like to join us on that journey, I'd welcome you to look into XCE, xce.io for the website. We're on X under XCE Official, listed on Aquis under XCE, and on the US OTC QB markets under XCE LF. So thank you for your time today.